The moment you stop trying to prove yourself is the moment your life actually starts working. Let me explain. Hey guys, welcome back to the Anchor Show. My name is Andrew, and today I'm going to be talking about the shift from having to prove yourself to actually knowing yourself and the importance of knowing yourself. Let's get right into it. All right, guys. So I know it's been a while, but I am back and very excited to be back. And I want to address the topic today of proving yourself to people versus knowing yourself and understanding yourself, right? And so let me start from the very beginning, right? Why is it that we need to prove ourselves? Why do we feel the need to prove ourselves, right? There's many reasons for that. One, it's societal expectation and societal pressure. Society put a lot of pressure on men to perform, to produce, right? And in that performance and producing, we often tend to kind of like lose ourselves and lose our identity, right? Because we're essentially performing to the tune of society, to the standards and expectations of society, right? If you ask a lot of guys right now a simple question: are you living life on your terms? Are you living life based on how you would like to be living your life? I can guarantee the answer would be no, especially guys who have a family, children, and responsibility. They will tell you no, they're not living life on their terms or according to how they would want it, because they're essentially performing, right? Now, to be clear, we're not talking about abandoning your responsibility and not carrying them out as you're supposed to. We're talking about going the extra mile, doing the most just to perform, just to show off, right? Or just to seek validation or to feel as though you're worthy or you're important, right? That's what I'm referring to when we're doing the most and overstretching ourselves to the point of exhaustion just to keep up or just to, put on this appearance. Essentially, you're putting on a front, right? What you got going on is a facade. And so that's the reason why we're performing in the first place, is because of societal expectation. And some of us hold ourselves to a certain standard. It could be based upon how we were brought, the society and the environment in which we were brought up. It shape us and mold us into thinking a certain kind of way. And so we hold ourselves to a certain standard, and we constantly have to work hard to keep up and maintain those standards, right? But one of the things that oftentimes happen, and especially nowadays with the change in economy and the change in political climate and the change in, social climate and so on and so forth, one of the things that keep happening with goals and expectations and standards is that the so-called goalposts keep moving. So when you think that you're getting closer, only to realize the post is shifted, right? So it's almost like you can't keep up. No matter how hard you try, no matter what you keep doing, you can't keep up because the posts keep getting shifted, right? So for example, right now, from a financial perspective, right? You go back maybe say 2 years ago, right? Someone making, 60,000-70,000 bucks a year more than likely could live a relatively comfortable, decent lifestyle, right? Fast forward 2 years later to where we're currently at in this jacked up, crazy economy. That 70K all of a sudden is no longer enough. It's no longer sufficient, right? Because of inflation, because of rising costs of goods and services, that 70K is no longer sufficient. So now, when you were at a point where you felt comfortable and you felt like, I got it covered, now you're no longer in that position. So you got to keep doing and overstretching yourself to get back to that point of comfortability where you once was. And with the challenges that we're dealing with nowadays in this economy, you may never be able to catch up to it, right? And so in the process of trying so hard, you're losing yourself, you're losing your identity, right? You're going far, you're moving further and further away from your true self, because You're worried about what your neighbors think. You're worried about what your families think. You're worried about what your friends think, right? And you're stretching yourself further and further away from your true self. And that in of itself can impact your overall well-being, right? Your mental well-being, your social well-being, your spiritual well-being. It can negatively impact just who you are, your overall well-being, because you're becoming someone who you don't recognize, and then eventually people around you won't even recognize you, right? You've shifted identity, and not for a good reason. So, or how do we make that shift from always having to prove ourselves to actually knowing ourselves, right? How do we do that? The way to know yourself is truly to go within. There's no escaping that. You have to go within, right? You have to soul search. You have to tap into your spirituality, right? You have to start understanding, if you never already did, what makes you tick? What are the things that you like? What are the things that you prefer? What are the things that put you in the best spirit, right? What are some of the things that makes you feel your most true and authentic self, right? You have to ask yourself those questions. You have to go ahead and explore your inner self to find those answers. And a lot of times they're not that hard to find, because all you have to think about is, okay, what makes you feel the most happiest? What makes you feel the most joyful? What makes you feel the most real and authentic and like, just your best self? It's usually not that hard to identify, because you already know. And if you just pause for a moment and go within, and a lot of times that could be, going in silence, like meditating, locking yourself in a room just in quiet and just peace and quiet, right? And just sit in your thoughts, right? And you'll find those answers. And once you find those answers, the question then becomes, how do I incorporate this in my life while still maintaining my responsibilities, right? How do I do that? This topic is primarily for men with responsibilities, because I'll give you an example. I was scrolling on the internet the other day and I came across this guy, and he was like, I guess he was single, so no woman, no partner, no children, right? And he was just done. He's like, I'm done. I'm done with this performance. I'm done with doing what society wants me to do. I'm going to live life on my terms. And so what he decided to do, so he took all his personal belongings to storage. He quit his job, and then he decided that he was going to go on the road, right? He's basically going to travel the country. He's going to do Uber Eats, DoorDash, along the way, just to make a little extra money. He was going to live off his savings and whatever investment he has. But what he's going to do is live life on his own terms, just traveling the country, making a little money here and there to keep up with, just certain expenses, phone bills, etc. And that's it. And he felt so relieved. He felt so empowered to be able to do that, because essentially what he's doing, he's walking away from performing and keeping up with societal expectations and living life how he see fit. And that's powerful. It's a lot of us who would love to do that but can't, right? So when I'm talking about making that shift from having to prove yourself and performing to actually knowing yourself, this is primarily for men with responsibilities, because that responsibility portion of it makes it more challenging, right? Because how do you live life on your own terms and also continue to be responsible, take care of your responsibilities, right? So once you've identified the things that truly makes you tick, the things that truly put you in your best self, right? Then you have to work out how can you incorporate that into your already existing daily life to include your responsibilities, right? And there's always a way. There's always a way, right? It's going to look different for everyone, right? Some people, maybe you go from working 2 jobs to 1, right? Maybe you go from really owning it on your side hustle and turn that into an actually profitable business that you're that you can do from home and then quit your 9 to 5. Whatever it might be, it will look different for each individual based upon what you got going on, based upon your skill set, etc., etc. But I personally think that it is important to know yourself, understand yourself, know what works for you, know what doesn't, and try to fit that into your life versus performing and trying to keep up with what everybody else is saying. And the key important factor here, guys, is not needing anyone's validation. Not needing anyone's validation is important, right? A lot of us, we want to be validated, we want to be praised, we want to be hyped up or propped up with the things that we're doing. But the truth of the matter is sometimes you're not going to get that, and you shouldn't need it. You should not need it. There's a few people in our life that we would expect like acknowledgement, and that would be like your wife, and maybe if you have like older children, maybe just maybe your children, right? But outside of them, and especially just your wife, you shouldn't need validation from people, right? Because people are very funny. They will prop you up to a certain point, right? They'll hype you up to a certain point. But once you get to a certain level, they won't do that anymore, right? And everyone's struggle is going to be different. No one knows what I'm dealing with personally. No one knows what he's over there dealing with personally. Everyone's struggle is going to be different. So if you're only validating me because I can show up and perform, right? You don't know the conditions under which I'm showing up and performing, right? But you can validate me because I'm showing up and performing. What if I were to tell you what I got going on, and because of what I got going on, I can't show up and perform no more? Do I still get validated? Do I still get, man, I understand, why you can't, or am I being criticized, right? So don't worry about validation. Don't worry about other people's, approval. Because another thing to keep in mind too is, if you were to drop dead right now, if you were to pass out, if you were to, get to a point where you just can't keep going, you can't go no more, no one cares, bro. No one cares about you, bro. Absolutely no one cares about you. Like, you would just be forgotten that quick, that fast, that easy, that simple. Nobody remembers you, right? You're only relevant when you're showing up, when you're in people's eyes. You've heard the term out of sight, out of mind. That's exactly right. It is exactly true. If you're not in the spotlight, no one cares. They don't care, right? So don't worry about people's validation. Don't worry about what others think of you, right? And don't let that be what drive you to essentially run yourself into the ground, overextend yourself to exhaustion just because you want to keep up, right? Let's put that into practical terms. If you can only afford a Toyota, for example, get the Toyota SUV, right? Don't go extend yourself to getting that Mercedes or getting that BMW because it's what you like, okay? But it's also what your neighbors drive, and so you want to kind of like fit in. You want to kind of like, again, perform, acting like you're able to when you can't. You're essentially putting on a performance, right? Because you have this BMW. Yes, it looks nice. Yes, you feel good about yourself. Yes, your neighbors look at you like, okay, cool, right? But can you really afford it? That's performance. That is performance. And there is a fine line between being ambitious and actually performing, right? You can be ambitious all day long, but let common sense drive your ambition, right? Meaning, if you desire to have something, right, wait until you truly can afford it to get it. That's common sense, right? But a performance is, you desire it, you can't truly afford it, but you go and get it anyways, and then now you're overextending. Now you need a second job. Now you need a part-time job, right? Now you really need to get a side hustle, etc., because you're performing, right? So let's stop performing, guys. Let's focus on knowing ourselves. Let's focus on living life for us, doing what works for you, doing what's best for you, right? You put yourself first, right? Because no one else is going to put you first. So you put yourself first, then your family, and your responsibility that comes with being a family man, right? And let it be in that order that you function and operate. Don't worry about what people think about you, right? We can't worry about people's opinion nowadays. We cannot. Right now, most people are on survival mode. We're just barely trying to survive and get by each and every day. Why would you care about what someone else's think? You shouldn't. If you do, you should not, right? Because you have to also remember this. As much as you're performing, because of societal standards and expectation and societal pressure that is placed upon you, as much as you're performing, so is everybody else around you. So is your neighbor, so is your cousin, so is your uncle, so is everybody around you, all your friends, right? They're also performing. If they were to be honest with themselves, they will tell you, yes, this is a show. This is a performance. I really can't afford this car. I really can't do this. I really can't do that, right? I'm truly exhausted. I'm really tired. I really wish I could just take a break. If they were to be honest, they will tell you that. But they're not. You know why? Because we live in a society that teaches us how to compete. Everything is competition, right? It teaches us how to compete. And we're also by default individualistic, right? So you be drowning and struggling and you never say a word. You just continue to drown and struggle, right? Rather than to keep it real and be honest with yourself, if with no one else, with yourself. And if you can become honest with yourself, if you learn how to know yourself and understand yourself, then you'll drop the performance and you'll start to function and operate in your truest, purest self. And you will start to see the humongous difference in your life. You'll start to see the difference in your life. You will start to see the difference in your life and how you start to feel a lot lighter, right? Some of the benefits of becoming yourself and knowing yourself and stop performing is you feel so much lighter. You feel like a burden has been lifted off your shoulder and off your head, right? You can function in your most pure and authentic organic self, right? You move more confidently. You're bothered less because you're not worried about people's opinion. You're not worried about what nobody has to say. You're just worried about you and your responsibilities. It feels a lot different. I promise you. So if you so happen to be one of those guys who feel like, man, you've been caught up in this performance cycle, going around in circles, chasing your tail, chasing this goal that just can't, that seems to be so unattainable, let this be your message. Let this be the time when you stop. Let this be your moment to go inwards and to reflect and to stop performing, right? Stop with that performance. You don't become powerful when people finally see your worth. You become powerful when you stop needing them to see your worth. That's when you become powerful, when you no longer need their validation, right? That's gonna be it for today, guys. Let's normalize knowing ourselves and acting and functioning within our own powers and within our own sovereignty, and quit with the performance. And if this is your first time interacting with my channel, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Please give this video a like, share it with a friend if you think they can benefit from this message. And like I always say, let us continue to grow, evolve, and transform into the best version of ourselves. Until the next video, guys. Peace.